Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. So today's topic is very interesting and imagine like being a 20-year-old young man today and you wake up, scroll through social media and what do you see? Men driving luxury cars, men talking about power, men saying the world is against you, men saying you need to escape the matrix, and one name appears again and again. Andrew Tate. Millions of young men are watching him, not just casually watching but listening, believing, and following. Some people call him a dangerous influence, and others call him a truth teller for modern men. But here's a real question most people are missing: why are so many young men drawn to him in the first place? Because this isn't really a story about one man. It's a story about an entire generation of young men who feel lost, unheard, and uncertain about their place in the world. And today we are going to explore the deeper psychology behind this phenomena. Not to attack, not to defend, but to understand. Okay? There's a silent struggle of young men. In many Western societies today, young men are struggling in ways that often go unnoticed. They're falling behind in several areas like education, mental health, and social connection. Young men are more likely to drop out of school, experience loneliness, and struggle with depression and feel socially disconnected. Yet, their pain is often invisible. Why? Because culturally, men are still expected to be strong, independent, and emotionally controlled. And many young men grew up hearing the messages like man up, don't cry, and deal with it. So instead of expressing pain, many young men internalize it. They feel confused about their identity. They feel unsure about their future. And when people feel lost, they start searching for someone who seems certain, someone who sounds confident, someone who claims to have answers. And that's where figures like Andrew Tate enter the conversation. And crying is a healthy emotion. And we all are humans. No matter whether you are a male or a female, one can cry. A difficult time can be on anyone. You have to go through a lot of hurdles in your life. And being strong doesn't mean that you are a cruel one or you are like, you know, if you are, very highly confident and you are not even taking care of other people, and then people would say you are very strong, and if one is crying or he is very quiet, they would say, no, you aren't strong. This is completely wrong. A strong person is that person who is kind, competent enough, who knows like how to he has gone through a lot in his life, but he knows how to help the other person. Crying doesn't mean that other person is not stronger. Please don't say this. So if someone is crying in front of you, it doesn't mean like they are weak. Okay, they're very strong. Okay, and there is always a certain level till a person can, you know um they can go through that, or they can feel these things. So now the power of uncertainty, one of the most powerful psychological forces in the human mind is certainty. When people feel uncertain about their life, they crave clear answers, and Tate delivers this message with extreme certainty. So Tate doesn't speak in complicated theories. He speaks in bold and simple statements. Make money, get strong, be dominant, and control your life. To critics, these statements may sound oversimplified, but to a young man who feels lost, they sound like direction. Now think about it. Imagine you are 18 years old, confused about relationships and unsure about your career and feel invisible in society. Then someone appears online and says you are not weak, you are not just disciplined yet. So that message can feel empowering, even if it is controversial, but even if it is incomplete. Because psychologically, people are drawn to leaders who project confidence and certainty. Now, the missing male mentor. Another important factor is something many young men quietly experience the absence of strong male mentorship. Many young men grew up without consistent father figures, male role models, and mentors guiding them through adulthood. In previous generations, young men often learned from fathers, uncles, coaches, and community leaders. But modern life has changed those structures. And when mentorship disappears, young men start searching for it online, and figures like Andrew Tate often fill that gap. And he speaks like a mentor. He talks about discipline, hard work, strengthen um, their power, and it gives them strength and status. So whether people agree with his views or not, the mentor dynamic is psychologically powerful because young men are not just listening to him, many of them feel like someone is finally speaking direct to them. So the dating confusion young men feel. Relationships today are more complicated than they were for previous generations. Social norms have changed rapidly. Dating apps have transformed how people meet, and many young men feel confused about what women want and how attraction works. Rejection can feel deeply personal, especially when young men are still developing their sense of identity. In this emotional space, messages that promise control over attraction can become extremely appealing, and Tate talks openly about status, confidence, and power dynamics. For young men who feel rejected or ignored, these ideas can feel like a roadmap to become desirable. But beneath this attraction often lies something deeper, a desire to feel respected, wanted, and valued. Because every human being wants those things. Now, the social media amplification. Another reason this phenomenon has grown so quickly is the power of algorithms. Like platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are designed to promote content that triggers strong emotional reactions like anger, shock, curiosity, and debate. So controversial statements spread faster than balanced discussions, and that means more proactive. Like it is a provocative clips often get more views, and once someone watches a few videos, the algorithm begins feeding them more and more similar content, and suddenly a young man's entire online will start reinforcing the same messages, and this creates what psychologists call an echo chamber. Okay, where one perspective begins to dominate the person's perspective of reality. Okay, then the masculinity crisis. One of the deepest psychological forces behind this trend is a broader cultural question. What does it mean to be a man today? For generations, masculinity was often associated with providing for family, physical strength, and leadership. But modern societies have changed dramatically. Many traditional roles have shifted, and while this change has brought many positive developments, it has also left some young men uncertain about their identity. When identity becomes unclear, people search for clear definitions. Figures like Andrew Tate offer a very defined version of masculinity: strong, wealthy, dominant, and unapologetic. For some young men, this clarifies this clarity feels comforting, even if the reality of masculinity is far more complex and balanced. And if we look deeper, most young men following these messages are not searching for controversy. They are searching for something much more human, like purpose, direction, respect, and belonging. And young men want to feel like they matter, like they are capable of building something meaningful, like they have a future worth fighting for. When society fails to give them a clear path, they look for any voice that promises one, and sometimes those voices becomes extremely influential. So now what I'm talking about right now is very important, the loneliness epidemic among young men. There is another reality that rarely gets discussed openly, that's loneliness. Many young men today are experiencing levels of loneliness that previous generation rarely talked about. They have they may have hundreds of followers online, but very few real friendships. They may spend hours connected to the world through screens, still feel deeply disconnected. And studies in Western countries show that young men are increasingly reporting that they have no close friends they can truly talk to. And loneliness doesn't just hurt emotionally, it changes how people think. It doesn't just hurt emotionally. Okay? So when people feel isolated for long enough, their brain begins searching for explanations. Why am I alone? Why am I struggling? Why does everyone seem happy when a confident voice appears online says the system is against you? For some young men, that explanation feels comforting because it turns their loneliness into a story that makes sense, and humans are wired to believe stories that explain their pain. So now the psychology of status and respect. Another powerful force behind this trend is something deeply rooted in human psychology, the need for status and respect. Throughout history, men have often measured their identity through achievement, strength, recognition, and influence. When young men feel invisible and powerless, it can create a deep sense of frustration. Now, imagine a young man watching a video of Andrew Tate talking confidently about wealth, power, and success. Luxury cars, expensive watches, global travel. For some viewers, this represents more than material success, and it represents respect. Because many young men don't just want money, they want the feeling that people look at them and say that guy matters. Status symbols become a psychological shortcut to that feeling, even if a deeper fulfillment they are seeking comes from something much more meaningful. Now, why critics often make that influence stronger? Interestingly, the criticism surrounding figures like Andrew Tate can sometimes make them even more appealing to the audience. Why? Because criticism can reinforce the idea that the person is speaking forbidden truths. When young followers hear constant attacks on someone they admire, they may interpret it as proof that the person is challenging powerful systems. This creates a classic psychological effect called reactance. Okay, when people feel that others are trying to control what they believe, they often push back by believing it even more strongly. So instead of weakening the influence, constant outrage can sometimes strengthen the loyalty of followers. This is why social media controversies often grow bigger instead of disappearing. Now, the healthy version of masculinity, where is something extremely important to understand. The reason many young men are attracted to messages about discipline, strength, and ambition is because those values themselves are not a problem. In fact, those values can be incredibly positive. Discipline is powerful, ambition can change lives, strength can build resilience. A real question is how these values are expressed. Healthy masculinity includes confidence without arrogance, strength without cruelty, and ambition without exploitation, and leadership with responsibility. Young men don't need to abandon masculinity. They need a balanced version of it, one that includes emotional intelligence, empathy, and self-control, and purpose beyond status. When young men learn this version of masculinity, something remarkable happens. They stop chasing validation and they start building meaningful lives. So, even if you are going through this phase, please always remember that you are not alone. Okay, there are hundreds and thousands of people who are suffering. Okay, so the real conversation isn't just about Andrew Tate, it's about a deeper question behind his popularity. Why do some young men feel lost in the first place? Because when people feel understood, they don't need extreme voices to guide them. They find healthier mentors, better role models, and stronger communities. The future of young men won't be decided by influencers alone. It will be shaped by parents, teachers, mentors, psychologists, and communities willing to listen. Because every young man deserves something more powerful than internet advice, and he deserves guidance, purpose, and path forward. And when we give young men that, they don't just follow leaders, they become leaders themselves. Okay? So you guys have a lot of potential and capabilities. Just follow that. Just find out that. For any sort of psychological support, you guys can connect with me as a consultant clinical psychologist. I'll always be available for you for any sort of therapeutic session. Thank you so much for watching today's video. See you soon in the next video. If you guys haven't subscribed, just go and subscribe my channel. Like the video. Don't forget to comment me below. See you soon in the next video. Till then, take care. Goodbye.